are back with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. I'm calling it now. I see the end of the pandemic in sight. Ivermectin. Remember I mentioned Ivermectin. You know how I'm ahead of the curve on just about everything, except like fashion, music, art, hairstyles, comedy, TV shows, all the materialistic shit. I'm not ahead of the curve on that. But the shit that's floating around the ether, I pick it up. And after 16 months of COVID and nothing but bullshit and horse shit and lies and contradictions and fantasies, I've finally heard a compelling, legitimate way out of this fucking mess. All those things that I've recommended you to do, the books to read, movies to watch, comedians to listen to, advice on quitting drinking, all that shit. Forget about all that shit. And if you're going to take one piece of advice from me, if you're going to act on one piece of advice, I implore it to be this one. You have to listen to the latest episode of the Dark Horse podcast with Dr. Brett Weinstein and Dr. Pierre Corey. It's the most important podcast you'll ever listen to, directly behind that time I got a wristy off the girl in the wheelchair. Close second. Go listen to it now. Forget about this podcast. You're wasting your time here. There's nothing here. All I'm doing is teasing autistic people and fatties here. There's nothing here. You need to go and listen to that podcast. If I had a choice, if you said to me, I'll listen to that podcast, but I'll never listen to your podcast ever again, I'd say, go. You have to listen to this fucking podcast. I'll tell you again, get your pen and paper out. It's the Dark Horse podcast with Dr. Brett Weinstein and Dr. Pierre Corey. You probably know who Brett Weinstein is. He's been on Joe Rogan a bunch of times. And Dr. Pierre Corey, Corey with a K, remember that? Corey with a K. He is the president and the chief medical officer of the FLCCC, the Frontline COVID Critical Care Alliance. He's also a lung specialist and an ICU specialist. And to boil it down for you, they've basically got a drug that is a preventative and a treatment for COVID-19. It has no side effects. It's been used for 40 years to treat parasitic diseases, and it's already been used with success in Peru, Mexico, parts of India, but in other parts of India, they've banned it. But the drug, for some reason, is being obstructed. Go listen to the podcast. Anyway, I listened to it today. I listened to it once. It's a long fucking podcast as well. So gear up, get in your tractor and fucking listen to the podcast. So I listened to it once today, this morning, and it was immediately one of those things where I'm like, just straight away in my gut, I'm like, yes, this is it. This is true. What they're saying is correct. Their argument, the evidence is compelling, convincing. From what I could tell, it was airtight. So I watched it this morning, then I'm like, fuck. If this is what I think it is, I need to tell someone. So the doctor's here, my sister-in-law, and I'm like, you've got to watch this thing with me. Can you watch it with me? So we watched it together, and she agreed with the whole fucking lot as well. She was just nodding her head the whole fucking way. And then she showed me the Indian protocol of treating COVID-19 that she got sent from, I don't know, the head of the health department. Ivermectin, it says, maybe use at the very start of the symptoms of COVID-19 and then no use anywhere else. And they actually talk about India in this podcast. They said the states that were under the biggest duress, like Delhi, had no other option than to start using ivermectin. And once they started using ivermectin, suddenly the cases started dropping, the deaths started dropping, everything started dropping. Then a place like Goa, the chief minister of Goa, when Goa was going up in flames about a month ago, said every person over the age of 18 in Goa needs to take 5 tablets of ivermectin to fight the COVID. And then after he did that, no fucking word coming out of Goa. It was under fucking crisis down there. So they also mention Tamil Nadu, and Tamil Nadu bought a shitload of remdesivir, and remdesivir is like $3,000 a vial. So the government bought a fucking shit ton of it, and immediately after buying the remdesivir, they banned the use of ivermectin in Tamil Nadu, and that's where my sister-in-law works, and she corroborated the whole fucking story with this. She's like, yeah, we used it at the start, and then they banned it. Anyway, you don't need me fumbling around trying to fucking explain it to you. Listen to a doctor of evolutionary biology, Brett Weinstein, and a fucking ICU doctor, lung expert, fucking Pierre Corey. Fucking isn't his official title, it's doctor, but go listen to that. So, here's how I see it playing out. Even though the information is out there that ivermectin can treat, but not only treat, prevent COVID-19, it is not going to make a lot of fucking difference in the very short term. No one is going to give a fuck. No one who's even listening to this podcast will even go and listen to that podcast. But what can I do? I've got to fucking say something, don't I? So this plays out over 2 years. They're not going to stop the vaccine program. I can tell you that right fucking now. Ivermectin is going to be suppressed as fuck. It's a common drug as well. It's an organic molecule, so it has no fucking side effects either. And it only costs between like $3 and $12 for a fucking whole bottle of it. And it's off patent, so no one's making money off it. Anyone can make it. And one vial of remdesivir is like $3,000. So anyway, it plays out over 2 years. The information about ivermectin will be suppressed. The vaccine rollout and the passport implementation will continue as planned. There will continue to be outbreaks of COVID-19 all over the world, crisis after crisis, and the protocol will continue to be as it is now. It won't change that much, but the people have the information, so the people will go around whatever the fucking authorities are saying and just go straight to the ivermectin. Then what will happen is word of mouth will spread around to a point, to a tipping point. It will get to the point where the authorities or the people in charge, the WHO or whoever the fuck's in charge anyway, it will get to the point where the people will know the truth about this ivermectin. So the people will just cut out the fucking middleman. They will stop listening to anything these authorities have to say and go straight to the ivermectin. And then the authorities will eventually have to concede that this drug works and it is an effective preventative and treatment for COVID-19. Otherwise, they lose any fucking last shred that they even do have of credibility. And at this stage, there is not a lot they have fucking left anyway. Especially after they confessed it's pretty much come out of a Wuhan lab. After calling everyone who fucking even mentioned that a fucking conspiracy theorist for the last year and a bit. Anyway, by the time that happens, by the time it reaches that tipping point, the vaccine laws are already in, the passport laws are already in. They're not getting rolled back anyway. They will concede that this drug works, but they will say you also need the vaccine on top of it. Some bullshit like that. But if the people just stop listening to these authorities that have been fucking thrown in your fucking face and just listen to this podcast and make up your own mind, then this whole thing can move a little bit fucking faster. That way I can get out and about again. I can come see the people. I can go to the people. But that's how I see it playing out. It's probably going to take a couple of years because people are resistant to fucking listening, and I could not even get my wife to listen to it. So good fucking luck convincing the world. Anyway, that's it tonight. Go listen to the Dark Horse podcast with Brett Weinstein and Dr. Pierre Corey. That's Corey with a K. And subscribe to the Patreon. See you the fuck later.